First of all, we have to define terrorism properly. If a non-Muslim does something bad, it is a crime. But if a Muslim commits the same crime, he is called as terrorist. So first remove this double standard, then come to the point. Do you know the fact that majority of terrorists who have attacked America are not Muslims? Here is the proof. You usually get the different headlines, right? According to research conducted at Georgia State University, terror attacks carried out by Muslims receive on average 357% more media coverage than those committed by other groups. 357% more media coverage are given to the Muslim terrorists. Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity has published that Pentagon paid PR firm $540 million to make fake terrorist videos of Muslims. That's why we say, my dear brothers and sisters, don't get fooled from the mind-controlling paid media propagandas that the terrorist attacks are due to religious influence. In fact, no, most of the terrorist attacks are politically motivated. If you doubt what I say, check who gets benefited at the end, the religions or the politicians. Moreover, if you want to honestly understand who instigates the riots in our beloved country India and which community gets killed the most and gets arrested in every riot, you need to first turn off your television, my dear, and Google some important and honest researches, like a research done by Mr. Sanjeev Sablok. It's mentioned in Mr. Sanjeev Sablok's blog for the statistics of riots. He says Muslims are killed 3 times more than Hindus. Every life is precious for us, my dear brothers, but most Muslims get killed. Their properties are burnt, and yes, of course, at the end, Muslims are the most to get arrested by the police, which takes all of their wealth and decades to prove their innocence. So do you still believe Muslims are the cause of all the unrest in our country? Oh, please do research your facts again. Among all the recent bank fraudsters who caused a huge loss to our country, not a single among them is a Muslim. Swami Narasimhananda Saraswati said, Muslims wait to become in majority. Once they are in majority, they start killing kafirs or non-Muslims. Is it true? Let's check the fact again and analyze wherever there are already Muslims in majority. For example, Malaysia has only 6% of Hindus, whereas Muslims are 65%, but no riots, no hate crimes. Indonesia has only 2% of Hindus and 88% of Muslims, but there are no riots. United Arab Emirates has only 7% of Hindus and 81% of Muslims, but you don't see any riots, you don't see any mob lynching there. The Qatar has 13% of Hindus and 69% of Muslims, but no riots. Bahrain has only 8% of Hindus, 77% of Muslims. Kuwait has 10% of Hindus, 75% of Muslims. Oman has 5% of Hindus and 86% of Muslims. Do you see any riots in these Islamic countries? Do you see any mob lynching in these countries? Do you see any injustice or hate crimes being done against Hindus in these Islamic countries? Then how can you say that when the Muslims become in majority, they'll start killing the non-Muslims? Now check again. In India, Muslims are only 19%. How many hundreds of riots have taken place? How many Muslims have been killed? How many mob lynchings have occurred? You have to cross-check yourself. Let me conclude my talk by showing a different angle of global terrorism. If Muslim community are culprits of doing terrorism around the globe, then who are the victims? This question must be asked. Who are the victims? Have you ever tried to search this angle? A research by French group World Anadolu Agency was published in November 21st, 2019. They said 80% of terror victims throughout the world are Muslims. 80% of terror victims throughout the world are Muslims. It is important to remind this in Europe because it is assumed that those who conduct terror attacks are Muslims and the victims are non-Muslims. This is not true. They say this is not true. They said 80% of terror victims throughout the world are Muslims. Muslims are the first to suffer the consequences of terror attacks. See, the actual facts are contrary to what is shown on television. Muslims are not the culprits of terrorism, rather, they are the actual victims of terrorism. I request all my non-Muslim brothers and sisters to stop believing in media blindly. Instead, start studying Islam. Get your copy of the Quran today and get a copy of the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, today. This is the right time to study, understand, and analyze by yourself. Thank you very much.